Russians inside of Russia are panicking. And to be fair to them, they have a very legitimate reason to panic. Because at this point, it's becoming very clear that Ukraine isn't just carrying out some drone attacks inside of Russia. Ukraine is implementing a strategy to bring the war to Russia. And Ukraine, just in the past week, has consistently shown that it has every intent of prosecuting this new strategy to completion. So just consider this. In Moscow alone, over 45,000 travelers were stranded for hours or days in the major airports because Russian authorities simply could not keep out the Ukrainian drones. Russian defense factories, located some 1,200 kilometers or over 750 miles from the front lines, proved that guess what? Ukraine can still reach them and destroy them. And these attacks are now triggering air defense in cities that have never heard air defense signals. This has the entire population on edge. For the first time since World War II, the heartland of Russia realizes that it is contested territory. People in central Russia are finally waking up to the fact that their country is at war, which means they are also at war. So, for the average Russian, the illusion of a safe, distant war is collapsing. The battlefield is no longer confined to a distant Ukrainian territory. In fact, now it's in the very heart of Russia, and it's attacking the transportation system, the military infrastructure, and the airspace across all regions of Russia. And it's not just that no Russian traveler can no longer be ignorant that there's clearly something going on, that Ukrainian drones are more likely to disrupt their flights than is inclement weather, but there's something even more important. And I think that very few people have noticed this, but it's worth noting. So, in Russia as a whole, only about 29% of people have foreign passports. Most people just simply never travel abroad. Now, that number is much higher in Moscow and St. Petersburg. It's a little bit over half in both major cities. So, who has a passport typically? Well, in the case of Russia, like most countries, it's generally people from the wealthier classes. Those are the people that have the power to create change and to make decisions. Decisions like, should we invest more in the economy or should we freeze our investments? Should we move our money out of the country and invest elsewhere, or should we invest more here in Russia? Should we perhaps keep our money in ruble or diversify or take it totally out of ruble because things are looking bad? These people, when they become scared, their lack of consumer confidence or confidence as a whole, it has a trickle down effect. And that trickle down effect gags the rest of the Russian economy. And there's one more fact that I've not heard anyone else mention, but as somebody who studies Russia, I suggest you should pay attention to, which is that when airports are forced to close, unlike many things, it's not the average Russian who's affected. As I said, a minority of people even have foreign passports. It's upper class. But even more important than that, it's the upper class, the oligarchs, the senior executives, the senior well-connected officials who are late for meeting at the Kremlin. Even though they have their own private jets and billions of dollars, their flights are also canceled. They are not anything special when there's Ukrainian drones in their airspace. They can't take off. They cannot land. They cannot do business as usual. And these are the very same people who decide the future of Russia. They're the ones who have the true levers of power. And if you look at Russian history, that's exactly the class that can come to the conclusion that it's spiraled out of control. Putin has driven us to the abyss. Perhaps it's better to end Putin. So at this stage, it's not just the common travelers or the people in their villages who are noticing that now there's these attacks going on. It's also the elites, those who truly drive the future of Russia. And if you look at this past month and what they see, it's not just the drone strikes. It's that the economy is truly on the precipice of collapse. It's a fact that now for everybody, it's abundantly clear that Putin is losing control of inside of Russia. And I think that only somebody who is totally ignorant of the Putin regime would argue that Putin is strong right now, because the facts speak for themselves. Though there's a lot that we don't know about what's happening inside the Kremlin, we do know very well how the economy is doing. We do know very well that there's attacks now across Russia. We know that the war has totally drained the country. And historically, looking at other countries as well as Russian history, it's these sorts of events, these sorts of crises, that can be exactly the spark for political change, something that others might call a coup. My name is Jason Smart. I'm a special correspondent for the Kiev Post, and I've spent now over 20 years specifically studying Russia and the Putin regime and other authoritarian regimes throughout my bachelor's, my master's, my PhD. And I've worked against the Putin regime during that whole period of time because it's very clear from, well, long ago that Putin was a threat to the world, to the West, not just the Russian people, not just to Ukraine. And that's why back in 2010, I was banned for life from ever entering Russia. And as somebody who's a true professional in this, who's spent now decades studying the Putin regime, I can tell you the Putin regime has never been so weak. The Putin regime today is in a very bad place. And I started to make these videos to help Ukraine, to help the West understand what I've learned over the last couple of decades. And that is essentially that Vladimir Putin will not stop until he is stopped. And Vladimir Putin's end all ambitions, it's not about Ukraine. Ukraine is important to him, but it's a front in a global war that he believes he's fighting against the West. And that's why Putin will not stop until he is stopped, and we should act now to stop the Putin regime. But if you'd like to help me get this message to more people so they understand exactly what's happening inside of Russia and the truth about what's happening here, where I am in Ukraine, please like this video, please subscribe to this channel, and please consider becoming a member of the channel. I appreciate it. So let's look back in this past month. What's happening? So, in just the first part of this month, I should say, July 2025, there's been deep strikes throughout Russia. We saw that, of course, the Izhevsk Defense Plant. That's critical for making the components that they need for the cruise missiles. Without it, they don't have a lot of other options. Located more than 8,000 kilometers, more than 680 miles inside of Russia, Ukraine successfully struck it. The Engels Air Base, which is once again part of one of the most important air bases, it's the one that has the nuclear capable bombers. It was hit yet again. It was hit 700 kilometers, 400 miles from Ukraine. And the attacks on the civilian airports was also very important. 5 major civilian airports suspended flights. They stranded over 335,000 passengers for the night. And to give you an idea of where those 5 airports are located, it was across a pretty large territory, over 500,000 square kilometers, which is the equivalent of 193,000 square miles. That's an area that's California plus Oregon, or twice the size of the United Kingdom. So makes it pretty clear that if Ukraine can fly across a territory twice the size of the UK, and the Russian government can do nothing to stop it, the airspace of Russia is now very weak. It's truly at risk. And then just another day passed, July 3rd, and we saw more attacks. Russia carried out attacks in Saratov, Samara, and Ulyanovsk. Those are across a pretty wide distance, 700 kilometers, 750 kilometers, 800 kilometers, which is a range of about 435 to, let's say, 500 miles. And this disruption, if you look at it as an aggregate, just to put this into something that's easier to imagine, this area, this disruption on July 3rd, was across 300,000 square kilometers, or over 115,000 square miles. That's 2 Italies or New Mexico and Colorado combined. That's significant. Ukraine flew. Drones got right through an area that was twice the size of one of the largest countries in Europe. And people's departures are being halted. They're being forced to go back home, explain that they can't get out of the country. They have to cancel meetings. They have to cancel very important things that they have to do. And it's because the government cannot protect them from the Ukrainian drones. This is again fracturing the illusion of this distance from the war. The war is in fact not distant. The war is here. It's present. But the attack that just occurred on July 5th was massive. So look at Moscow. Sheremetyevo Airport, which is the largest airport in Russia. It's the major hub airport. It was shut down for 7 hours. Over 45,000 people were grounded. Kaluga, Nizhny Novgorod, Pulkovo. Guess what? Massive delays. Across that entire area, multiple people had to cancel their flights for days. They're not sure if they'll ever get to their destinations. And the government doesn't really know what to do. How do you rebook these things if it can start again tomorrow? What do you do when day after day is continuing and you have a deeper realization? It's not just an inconvenience. It's not just that yesterday, on the 6th, over 400,000 square kilometers, over 154,000 square miles, an area that's bigger than Germany or California plus Nevada, was totally open, free range for Ukrainian drones. It's not just that, it's that Ukraine now is consistently doing this. So if we try to surmise what this means, it's not just about the airports being closed, it's about the fact that Ukraine can do this consistently for weeks. How about if it does it every single day? How about if Ukraine decides we just don't want the Russians to have civilian aviation? We don't want the Russians to have the ability to create weapons. And that's what it looks like it's happening. Ukraine's, the nature of these attacks, if you're following them and you look at the uh, way that they're being executed and the similarities that they have, it's becoming more and more clear that there's a steady escalation. Ukraine is systematically deciding to destroy Russia's ability to have a normal civilian aviation. They're destroying Russia's ability to have a normal way of life. And drones have been repeatedly noticed across Russia. In Kazan, in Belgorod, in Voronezh, in Kursk, people are living in fear. They don't know when it's going to stop. And the fact is, the Russian authorities can't promise them anything. Moscow airports were again closed partially today. Rostov-on-Don had to cancel air flights again today. And across the country, you see what's going on. Why is this happening? And there's a statistic that I thought was absolutely amazing that I read just earlier today. So in 2023, there's 80 confirmed airspaces that were closed in Russia. In 2024, there's 95. By July 2025, closures had surpassed 217. That's more than the previous 2 years combined. And all this leads to something that's obvious. There's an emerging crisis that's getting worse and worse. Ukraine can realistically paralyze Russia's airspace at a scale that simply is unimaginable. Now, if you consider what this means going forward, what this means for Russian authorities, this also paralyzes their business, their ability to carry on with normal business. They can't travel around Russia. Russia is a massive country. It's 11 time zones. If you can't fly, it's going to be very difficult to get around. And so now it's also depriving the government of being able to have normal governance, to travel to all the regions of Russia, to get where they need to go. They can't do it. They can't guarantee their presence. And imagine what that looks like if you're out in some other part of Russia and you learn that whatever official from Moscow just can't make it today. The drones are keeping him at home. Or you're a military leader and you have to reach to the southern region of Russia to help go prosecute the war in Ukraine, and you can't catch a flight because Ukrainians are forcing your flights, your ability to travel, they're forcing those to be canceled. There's strategic consequences to what we are seeing. It's not just something that's operational and daily. It's not something that's just simply interesting or inconvenient. It's that now at this point, airports, especially those that are dual use, such as Angles or Belgorod, they're facing repeated closures. So yes, civilians are affected, but the Russian military is directly affected. And I think it's very fair to say that this will be picking up. We should expect more attacks within the Russian airspace in the very near future. Things are getting very bad for Vladimir Putin. And the best part about it, though, is that there's no solution. No matter what Vladimir Putin does at this point, it will not get better. It will get worse. So pay close attention. A lot's going to be coming in the next few days and weeks. But what we're seeing, the absolute pandemonia in the Russian airports, is extraordinary. I've never seen something like this across all of Russia before. So stay tuned. I'll be bringing you the updates on it. Please like this video. Please subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much. And if you'd like to help Ukraine get more drones, I'll put a link in the first comment below of how you can help the Ukrainians get more drones to continue this great work inside of Russia. Thank you so much. And as always, thank you very much for supporting Ukraine.